Hello, everyone. Thanks for attending the webinar today. This webinar is Back to Basics, Base Training for Road and Mountain Bike Racing, presented by Curt Wilhelm. Curt is the owner and head coach at MTBCoach, LLC. My name is Melissa Schwartz, and I'm the manager of the education department here at TrainingPeaks. And I also have Sean Hygen joining me. She's also a member of the education team. The two of us are going to be collecting questions as Curt goes through his presentation. So if you have a question that you would like answered, go ahead and submit it in the little question area of your control panel, and Sean and I will collect them. And then depending on how much time we have at the end, we'll be able to read some of these questions out loud and have Curt answer them. Now, if you have a question regarding your TrainingPeaks account, please submit that through our support channels. So just go to trainingpeaks.com, click on support in the upper left corner, and submit your question that way. So we really just want to collect questions that are directly relative to what Curt is talking about today. So we are recording this, and we will be uploading it to YouTube. And either later today or tomorrow, we'll send out an email to everyone who has attended and registered to let you know that it's available and you can go watch it. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Curt.
Okay, well, thank you for the introduction. Again, my name is Curt Wilhelm, and I'm the owner and coach at MTBCoach, LLC. And so I focus on racing and training on the mountain bike in endurance and XC races, but this is also applicable to the road racing as well. So don't get discouraged if you're thinking this is just about road mountain bike racing. So I started racing in 1990, and I founded MTBCoach LLC in 2008, and I've been helping athletes all over the world meet their goals in mountain bike races. I'm currently racing in endurance, ultra endurance, and sometimes cross country here in Colorado and neighboring states. Today we're going to cover the basic ideas around base training, how to get started, some outdoor and indoor workouts, and just touch on the diet a little bit. So let's get started. So before we get into base training, I just kind of want to set the stage for kind of where to start before you actually start the training. If you're coming off the couch, you need to get prepared a bit. But if you've been training and racing, then this is before you hit another program, then you need to kind of take a break. Riding at your own pace, no structure. So maybe even take off the heart rate monitor, take off the power meter. You're not following a plan. You're really having fun and just keeping fit. I would recommend, even some time off the bike so that you have some recovery. And how much time you take off the bike is really up to you and how much you've been training, but it could be a week, it could be 6 weeks. But if you're taking 6 weeks, you definitely need more preparation time before you get into a structured program. And you'd want to take this time off really to reset your mind and your body. There's a lot of stress that goes into a season, not just the physical stress, but the mental stress. There's not just the, keeping up with your workout schedule, but most of you are, working, and you have families and have all these other responsibilities that add to the stress. And so by taking the training out of the routine really helps you reset. And of course, by not having the stress of this physical activity, your body will, it's going to build a little bit from that. You're going to gain some strength so that when you come back to the season again, you're going to feel motivated and strong and ready to go. Also during this time, you want to set some goals for the season. Take the time off of the training to really look back and, what do you think about what you want to do different, what worked well, what didn't work well. Maybe have a new challenge that you want to set forth in. So, think about how you would do that, what steps you would take towards meeting that goal, and build your season around those goals. And that would start. You want to start that before you start your base training. You also, if you haven't been training and you're just getting started, or maybe you had to take some time off and you're coming back to it, then you want to have an FTP test or a LTHR test. That's the lactic threshold heart rate or the functional threshold power. And that's going to basically set a baseline for your fitness level. And that would be really helpful so that you can measure your progress as you go. The FTP values will change as you progress in fitness. Your LTHR generally won't change too much, but you will be able to go faster or longer at that same lactic threshold. So those are good measurements as well. And once you have that, then you want, if you're using heart rate or power, you're not just looking at numbers. You're actually using those numbers to understand what intensity you should be riding at. So when you're doing workouts, you're not going too hard or you're not going too slow. And so use your devices to help you. And you do that with maybe setting zones. The Garmin devices, which is popular, they have a zone setting. And also, for the TrainingPeaks users, there's zones set in your account so that you can make sure that when you're looking at your workouts that you hit the zones appropriately. And then also, by having your FTP and LTHR, you can follow your stress scores and performance management chart a lot easier without that. And I did touch on preparation. So preparation is really just the riding at your pace and not structure. But it's hard to say how long that preparation period would be. It could be a couple of weeks. It could be even a month, depending on how long it's been since you started your, since you have been off of a training program. If you're just coming onto a training program because racing is interesting to you, then I would say a month maybe. I wouldn't use a base training period to come right off the couch and do it, but you certainly could. Probably a little bit harder than normal, depending on the program that you pick. So what is base training? Why do we do this? Well, it's adaptation. You're adapting your body to the demands of cycling. It's the from sitting on the saddle to the constant rotation in the pedals, the hunched over the back, the cardio aspect. There's tons of things that your body is doing, right? And so certainly if you're new to training, this is a huge aspect to base training. But even if you are just restarting your season again, there's always new things that you can do to adapt. And maybe it's adapting to a higher cadence in your pedaling. If you're a masher and you're constantly just riding at 70 RPM, one, you're not being very efficient, but also there's a lot more skills you can improve on by having a faster cadence. So adapting to that. This is a great time to improve your metabolic efficiency, and this is basically using fat to fuel yourself while you're riding. The more fat you burn, it's just another fuel source. You can make power and endurance gains in this period. So endurance would be, maybe you have a big challenge, maybe you have a 100-mile mountain bike race, or you're doing a big century. and you're uncomfortable with that, so now's the time to start really putting in the miles to make yourself feel comfortable and capable of doing something like that, but also, using this period to build some power to weight ratio gains. Overall efficiency, being more efficient on the bike, so that could be in the cardio aspect or in your strength. How well you can, how you want to be using as little energy as possible when you're cycling, and so improving your efficiency in this period is most beneficial than when you're trying to do it in the next phases of training. Building your aerobic engine, again, going back to the endurance gains. So this is where you're really improving the aerobic engine. Those are the longer, slower distances, or working to where your heart rate isn't taxed to the max the whole training session. And really, it really boils down to is you're training to train. You're not training to race right now. This is about training to train. So getting yourself ready for that period of your season where you're really going to be hitting it hard, and you're preparing your body for that. So typically a periodic training cycle would include some training blocks. Typically these blocks are 12 weeks long, and in these 12 weeks you have three 3-week blocks, or for most masters, and kind of depending on the age, but it could be 45 or 50, maybe even in the 40s, you would be doing 4 2-week blocks. And after those blocks, then you have a rest period. And so these blocks are really, you're building, progressing through each week, and at the end of that 3 or 4 week block, 2 or 3 week block, then you have a rest period. So, and the rest is really a 40 to 50%, maybe as much as 60% less volume than what you'd be doing during those training blocks. So if you were putting in 12 hours a week, then maybe you're going to do 8 hours or maybe even 6 hours. And you can estimate that just by the math, but also if you're feeling, wow, that was a really tough block, and I'm going to need more time to recover because maybe you weren't able to hit all of the goals for that training block, you want to maybe take some more rest. And rest is not off the bike. It's less time and maybe less intensity. It could be maybe some higher intensity workouts, but shorter duration. Again, about 40 to 50% less volume than what you'd normally do. And this is a pretty standard approach to how coaches do training cycles. There might be some other philosophies out there, but typically this is it. And there might be some blocks within these blocks. So within a week, you might have a 3 or 4 day block where you're progressing through the week, and in there's some rest days, and you might have some bigger 3 or 4 or even 7 hour rides, and then some shorter workouts that maybe fit your workday week schedule, and then weekends are the bigger blocks as well. So what is really in this period is up to you and your goals and your training. Working with a coach could certainly help guide you through that. But you'll see on my website that there's lots of different training sessions that you could use to work through these blocks. Let's see. So here's some workouts that I prescribe to my clients and I use for my own training. So these are indoor, since we're going, for most of us, at least in the US, we're pretty much in base period, and some of us are going to be forced to the indoors because of the weather. So here's some indoor workouts that are pretty easy to do. Isolated leg workout. This is building that efficiency in the spinning and making you a smooth pedaler. So the best way to describe this is putting your foot up, one foot on the pedal and one foot off, keeping it off the pedal, maybe resting it on a chair or something where it can be stable, not just trying to balance it, and doing some one-legged intervals. So this is really focusing on the form and making circular rotations in the pedal, not an up and down motion. So it's really going to teach you that to use the whole spin in the crank instead of just pushing down. Steady state intervals. I've heard of people talk about these using a higher intensity, but I'm thinking of these in a aerobic pace. So not where you're at race pace or anything to even near that. It's if you're using zones in the zone 2 or low zone 3, high zone 2, low zone 3, and these could be at different durations. 8-minute on, and then a couple of minutes, 5 minutes off, maybe even 4 minutes off. So you do a warm up, then you do an interval of say 8 minutes, and then you do a rest of any easy spinning, and then you do it again. And I do them at different durations. So depending on where I am in my personal plan, I may have even a 20-minute interval and then like maybe 10 minutes off. So really that depends on your fitness level, where you are in your training program, and how much time you have. So generally, you can get maybe 6 intervals in at 12 to 20 minutes apiece in 2 hours on the trainer, and it helps break up the monotony of just sitting there spinning, but you actually are watching the clock and focusing on your heart rate or your power, and makes it a bit easier with interval force workouts. It's another interval type of workout, but these are what this workout does is build your climbing ability. And so how you do that on the trainer is using gears. So making the gears harder, getting the cadence down to maybe 60 RPMs and doing that for 30 seconds, maybe up to a minute, depending on where you are in your program. And then you're bringing the gears, making the gears easier, and then spinning at a easy cadence and alternating that. And as you get more fit, then you can go do more time. Workouts, do those outside, and use hills for climbing. Don't try 50 RPMs for 30 minutes or even 50 minutes. You're going to start hurting your knees. Tempo workouts, these are rather boring personally, but these are just constant speed at a zone 3 heart rate, or power for that matter, and just working on that muscular endurance to improve your pace ability, your pacing ability, and keeping your heart rate at and your power at a certain value for the duration. And usually these are 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, maybe 90 minutes. 90 minutes on the trainer at a constant zone 3 tempo is tough, so I wouldn't suggest most people doing that. Those are great workouts, but save those for outdoors. The trainer might be best for 30 minutes I wouldn't go much more beyond that, maybe 45 minutes. And then you can stack them up, so you do maybe three intervals at 30 minutes apiece. And then in between the intervals, recover with easy spinning and bring the heart rate back down. Sub-threshold intervals, kind of the same thing, but these would be like 10 or 20-minute intervals at the zone 3 rate. And these tempo and sub-threshold, I should note that best for later in the base period. I wouldn't recommend, well, depending on your fitness level, elite level, pro level, probably okay for these type of workouts, but their fitness level is very high. Beginner, novice, save these workouts for later in the base training phase. So maybe the third, the third month of your training cycle. And those would help you get ready for the more demanding workouts that you'd have when you're getting ready to race. And of course, just easy spinning. So these would be like an active recovery or focusing on speed work, so high cadence, low pressure, low power, low heart rate even. So working on form, efficiency, and it's good for not having the demands of the higher intensity stuff that also does a lot of good. And of course, you want to have rest days in there as well. So how your week may look with these, if you were stuck on the trainer all week, you could probably do one of each depending on what day of where you are in your training plan. But you may want to have an extra rest day in there as well. So isolated legs aren't too demanding, but those are generally done at the early part of the season or the base session. So let's see. Some outdoor workouts. There's not a lot of excitement with these, but it sure is nice being outside. So it really doesn't matter what the workouts are when it's been yucky outside and then you have a nice day. So a lot of the same routine with what I had in the indoor, but these could generally be longer because it's so much easier to do workouts outside. So force workout, fine. If you don't have hills, then you can use the same thing with gears. You're making a harder gear, so you're pushing at maybe a 60 to 65 cadence, maybe even dropping it down a little bit lower if you felt necessary. But if you have hills, then I would use the hills to build your force and basically drop your gears down so it's one or two more gears harder than what you would normally use, so that your cadence is lower, and 5 minutes or so, maybe even 2 minutes, depending on where you're at in your program. Tempo or sub-threshold workouts, kind of the same as in the trainer. Sometimes you can do these longer 3-hour rides at a tempo pace, which is really good for building power as well as muscular endurance and cardio improvements. If you're short on time, then the sub-threshold intervals, go bang out 2 or 3 of those and call it a day. You get a lot of good benefit from those and will help you when you start doing the threshold intervals later in your program, where you're not feeling like you're going right into it. These kind of a good way to ease into them. Then of course there's the long, slow distance rides. Zone 2, relatively low heart rate and not a lot of climbing, just long rides. And long is relative to the individual. That may depend on your goals but I wouldn't, if you're only used to doing, 2 hours a long ride, and then you decide to go out for a 6-hour ride, probably you need to work into that. I wouldn't just jump right into that. So increase maybe half an hour each weekend to get up to those longer days that you want. If you're already fit and can do those longer rides, then go for it. Really depends on your goals and your fitness level. But these are great for those longer sessions that you'll have in the race season, and going to help you quite a bit there. So in a lot of areas, biking just isn't an option, and being on the trainer is really tough. So here's some cross-training examples, suggestions. If you have the ability to do some cross-country, backcountry skiing, then by all means, those are great workouts. Not only is it a good cardio, but there's lots of other skills that you get with that. You build some core strength, you will build leg strength, and it's a good break from the bike, but also a great just fitness building. And again, the time is based on your fitness level. I know some people that can go out for 10 hours, and but if you're a novice, then shoot for 2 and see how that goes. Maybe that might even be a challenge. Snowshoeing, there's none of this going on in Colorado right now. We're lacking snow, but when there is snow, both this backcountry skiing and snowshoeing are great alternatives to cross training. So if there's lots of snow on the ground, put on the snowshoes, put on the skins, and get out, enjoy the fresh air. An elliptical trainer at a gym is a good alternative to the bike. Builds the cardio, you're moving the arms, you're moving the legs. If you're a runner, running seems to translate pretty good to the bike. Biking, I have found that it doesn't translate very good to running. That's just personal identification. But, so running a few miles, even if you're a triathlete, that's going to be part of your normal program. But if you're just a cyclist, running is not going to hurt too much. And of course, strength training. Strength training is a good alternative. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. All of these are great alternatives. However, as you get closer to the time when you're going to start training to race versus training to train, you want to be on the bike more. The specificity is huge on the bike. And so you might want to think about this as alternatives for maybe the first 2 months of your base plan. And then as you start getting ready to train to race, going into your build phases, then you would want to be on the bike more. The more you're on the bike, all that other stuff that we just talked about is going to happen. The adaptation, the efficiency, the gains that you're looking for are going to be done there. These are not many gains are going to be made here. What it's doing is keeping you fit and active. The cardio certainly is, you gain from that, but cycling specific stuff is really what you're looking for towards as you get closer to the end of the base period. So for strength training, there's a lot of debate on strength training, and I can go either way, and it really kind of depends on the individual. So here's some guidelines on when somebody comes to me as a coach and says, hey, so my friends say I should be doing strength training as part of my my routine. And so the way I look at it is, if you're relatively new to cycling or training, then I could see some benefit there. Also, as you get older, you start older, maybe maybe 40s, 40 plus, women maybe in the later 30s, you start losing strength. And so by using the strength program can help you with that. And again, it really depends on the individual. If you're fit and you're training hard and racing, you may not need to do strength training. So don't say like, oh, I'm over 40, I got to start doing a strength program. That's not what I'm saying. It's really where you are. If you're new to cycling and you're 40, it probably doesn't hurt. But there's some guidelines to how this would work. So I would start with 2 to 3 times a week, and this would be at the beginning of your base plan. You start easy with light and high rep weights. So in easy, I can't put a number on easy with weights because everybody's going to have different strength. So, but you want to be able to do light, high reps. And every 2 to 3 weeks, you'll increase the weight but reduce the reps is the easiest way to look at how your progression would occur. And so, after 2 weeks, if you're feeling like you're still struggling and maybe not recovering fast enough from the weight sessions, then you may want to reduce it to just 2 weeks, two times a week instead of 3 times a week. And in this week, you're still cycling as well, right? So, or doing the elliptical, or running on the treadmill, or whatever you're doing, and obviously the trainer, outdoor workouts. So there's a lot of stress that's involved here, and with strength training, the recovery isn't as fast. So, I found it could take an additional day to recover from a workout with strength training than it would if you were doing a bike workout. But there's still some gains that can be made. So there's, if you're self-coaching, you need to figure out what works best for you. You may experiment and find that the strength training works for you, and maybe you work with a coach, and the coach can help you identify some of the strengths and weaknesses with that. But it really comes down to individual needs. And so once you get to near your race season, or you can do the weights into your build period, but I would reduce the weights to once a week, 6 weeks before the race season. So, and the reason why I say that is for the specificity, and so that you're now recovering from those workouts, so that when you start hitting those high intensity workouts for your races, that you're not struggling to recover from these strength workouts, so you can hit your goals with the workouts leading into the races. And I don't recommend doing weights during the race season. Again, the recovery is too long. If you have big breaks between your races that are maybe 3 months apart, and you maybe start your routine over, maybe you have some micro versions of the base and build period, then it probably wouldn't hurt to do that. But if you're following the standard periodized training plan where it's 12-week base, and then you have a build period and a race period and so on, then cut out the strength training once you get into the build period. Let's see here. So we have some ideas on diet, and don't take this as, these are just some guidelines, this top bullet point. So 60% carbs, 20% protein, 20% fat. There's a lot of, if you did a Google on this, you'd probably find all kinds of different answers. Everybody's got different needs for their energy, what their fat level is, how they burn carbs, and everything else. So this is a starting point, if you will. If you're really serious about your nutrition, then there's tons of sport nutritionists out there, and I even think there's a webinar this week, I think on Thursday, that's going to talk about sports nutrition. But so here's a guideline. So you may need 70% carbs and 20% protein and 10% fat. Maybe it's 50% carbs and 30% protein and 20% fat. So you have to play with this, but you certainly need protein to build those muscles back up so you're recovering. You need the fat because that's what you're burning, especially in these base workouts, and you need the carbs for energy. But there's some guides on what type of foods you should be eating. So high protein, you want lean meats. Hamburger is not a lean meat. Pork is generally not very lean. Chicken is getting better, certainly better than the others. Just no skin, and chicken breast is probably the best. 4 ounces on a meal is probably enough. And nuts and seeds and eggs are all other good sources of protein. And this is the stuff. So think about the quality food you're putting in is really going to be how you're able to fuel yourself in these workouts, right? So it's high octane food, really, and healthy carbs. So you want potatoes and whole grains and beans. Stay away from processed foods like chips and cake and cookies and things like that. And for the fats, stick with healthy fats. So olive oil is great for cooking with. Avocado, salmon, these are all great good fat alternatives. And a lot of people ask me about, should I, there's kind of a fad going on with sports nutrition and gluten or not gluten. And so my stance on that is gluten, there's a lot of great things with gluten. Certainly if you're gluten intolerant, then you need to be gluten free. But there's you're not having processed foods. You're basically following these guidelines that I gave here, except for the whole grains, with the meats and carbs and fats. But the best thing about it is gluten promotes inflammation, and by being gluten free, you'll improve your recovery by having less inflammatory foods in your system. So it's something you can experiment with, you can talk to a nutritionist about, certainly worth looking at. So more things on the diet. We have a lot of the veggies that I would recommend, a lot of the carbs I'd recommend would be veggies. So green, red, yellow, and orange type vegetables, and you mix them up. So there's squash and peppers, and there's tons of great vegetables out there that you don't need to have potatoes and the breads and the pastas to give you the carbs you need, and these are so much more better for your performance. And they have a lot of fiber in them, so which is good for the heart and the blood and other things. So I suggest replacing most of your carbs with vegetables and whole vegetables in salads instead of other carbs. And of course, pastas and breads and chips and stuff, the least amount you can do of those or move them completely, I think the better off you'll be. And for workouts, just as a side note, you want to stay hydrated. You need to figure out what your water intake is. Generally, depending on your size and weight, you're going to need, especially where we in Colorado, where probably most of the people listening need 90 ounces of water a day plus some. If you're living in a higher elevation, then you may need even more than that. When you're doing workouts, you don't need sport drinks. So stick to just water, right? And if you're working out for more than an hour, up to 2 hours, it could be beneficial to have a low-cal sport drink for some of the electrolyte options. Of course, over 2 hours, you'll want something more, depending on what your goals are and stuff. But certainly a sports drink with some carbohydrate mix in there would be beneficial. I think that is it. So we can take some questions.
Thanks, Curt. All right, so we collected a good amount of questions. So I'll give them to you for as much time as we have for Q&A here at the end. Okay, so the first one is, how do I know what intensity to use for the suggested workout?
So, very good question. The first slide we hit was doing the FTP test and the lactic threshold test. And with that, you get a good indication of your fitness. And so by doing those tests, you'll get some numbers like your average heart rate for 20 minutes or your average power for 20 minutes. And with those numbers, you can, in TrainingPeaks, you can set your zones, and in your training devices, most training devices will include a zone capability. And so you plug in, you'll get your lactic threshold heart rate or your FTP, and then you can plug those into your device and into TrainingPeaks. And on your training device, you want to show that zone. And so in my workouts that I provide, I have like do this workout in this zone, or maybe in these number of zones. And so like, okay, so I did my workout, my threshold test, and now I have my zone, so now I know I can do these workouts, and this is the intensity that I should work out as. And my workouts include like time and the duration, so you know specifically how long you should go for and your intensity. And then as your fitness builds, you'll keep redoing those tests like every month or so, and then those numbers hopefully change. Your heart rate won't change, but you'll just become faster at that same heart rate. But your power numbers will change, and you can keep changing those your devices to include those numbers, and so your intensity will increase as you go. That's my answer for that question. Do you have more?
Yep, I've got some more here. What about doing high intensity workouts during the base training phase?
Well, I get that question asked a lot, and so it really depends on what your goals are. I'm guessing if you're trying to do workouts every day, or maybe 5 or 6 days a week, and you only have half an hour to an hour each day to work out, then those are probably going to be just fine. If your goals, but you're only going to be good, and I'm not saying, I'm going to rephrase that. It's going to be hard to do races that are longer than an hour and a half long. So you might be okay with a crit. You might be okay with a hour and a half cross-country race, but you're not going to have that adaptation to go a 5-hour endurance race or a century or anything that's beyond maybe that 2-hour range. So it really kind of depends on what your goals are. Even in my base training plan, for some of my athletes, I'll throw in a day a week of high intensity, but it's a short workout, and it's really just to fit into their schedule because they only have a certain amount of time that week or that day. So I want to include a high intensity workout so they still have kind of the benefits of a longer workout, but in a short amount of time. But these guys are also, and gals, are also doing 3 or 4 hour tempo workouts on the weekend. So they're going to be good for those longer 100-mile mountain bike races or centuries or a 2-hour road race or what have you.
So I thought tempo and sub-threshold workouts are considered high-intensity workouts. So why do you suggest those for base training?
Well, they're kind of right on the edge of high intensity. I don't consider them high intensity. If you're right at the top of the tempo, zone 3, then that could be, you're almost crossing the line into the high intensity area, or at least what I would consider high intensity. But generally, these would be done towards the end of your base period, or if you are an advanced athlete. So if you're racing in the pro category or elite category, most of your time is going to be in that area, and that's really because these athletes are so efficient that they need to progress. They need to have that level. If you're beginning in your training phase, then you would have less of these. Probably your last 2 or 3 weeks would be these tempo and sub-threshold workouts to get you ready for higher intensity stuff in the next phase of your season, your training season.
Okay, thanks. A couple of just really quick questions. For the strength training, do you recommend that before or after your bike rides, or on different days?
Good question. I guess it depends on how much time you have. If you have the time to do both, a double workout, then I would say do the bike after. Generally, what I've done in the past when I was doing strength training, I would do a warm-up on the bike of 10 or 15 minutes just to get the blood flowing and so on. A little sweat build up, nothing intense at all, just moderate, easy to moderate effort for the 10 to 15 minutes. And then do my workout, and then that would be in the morning. And then in the afternoon, like a lunch ride or lunch session on the trainer or something, then I would do another hour on the bike. And sometimes I was able to do the workouts that I wanted. Like if I wanted to do a tempo workout on the trainer, sometimes my workout was too hard in the gym on the weights to be able to accomplish that. So I realized that when I started riding, and so I knew that I wasn't going to benefit from it. So then I would just do an easy spin for the hour that I had or whatever. So maybe a zone 2 on the trainer, or maybe some low intensity intervals just to break up the monotony of the trainer. So it really depends on the schedule. If you have time to do both, it's good. What I like about doing it in the same day is keeping the specificity and kind of taking the staleness out of the legs, because I found that with weightlifting or strength training, the legs become very sore and tired, so it kind of like woke them up and made them feel normal again. But maybe, I've heard that from other people. Certainly worked for me. What else you got?
Well, you just mentioned doing just zone 2 work on the bike if you were crunched for time. So someone asked if there's any value to zone 2 workouts on the trainer without intervals.
Well, yeah, I think so. There's the aspect of the building up the aerobic engine. I know, that's generally like the long, slow distance type workouts, but sometimes they're good for zone 2, easy spin on the bike, not intervals. You're just sitting there watching TV or rocking to the music, and I think that's perfectly fine, especially if you were short on time and you couldn't get outside when the weather was good for the day. I think that there's a lot of benefit to it. It's keeping the motivation and also sticking to your plans, right? Like, oh, well, I couldn't get outside today, and I was supposed to do a zone 2. If you're dedicated to the plan, do that on the trainer. And you know, maybe the plan was for 2 hours. Try doing an hour and a half, and because you don't have the stoplights and the slowdowns and the coasting you have on the trainer, you might actually get the same amount of work in on the trainer that you were supposed to get out on the mountain or on the road. So hopefully that was a good enough answer.
Yeah, thanks. I think we have time for just a couple more. So you talked earlier about inefficiencies of adopting a lower cadence. What is an ideal cadence to aim for using on the road? I know that might be a loaded question, but we'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, you know, I like a higher cadence. You mountain biking, you know, certainly there's a tendency for lower cadence because there's a lot more climbing, but having a higher cadence, whether you're road or mountain bike, will improve your overall efficiency, so you'll burn less energy. It generally might raise the heart rate a little bit, but if you are training with a higher intensity, you're more likely to be able to have greater power with lower effort. So for an example, if you're training, you know, if you're riding at a constant 85 to 90 RPMs, and then you need to make that jump to break the gap, you're going to have to go 110 maybe for 30 seconds, couple minutes to catch, you know, to don't let that break get away. So, you know, I do when I'm doing workouts in high intensity mode, I recommend, you know, like 100 to 110 RPMs for like VO2 max, so that helps progress towards that example with kind of bridging that gap. But even if you're just doing tempo rides and you have a little bit of an incline, you know, using a 90 RPM or so, right, between 85 and 95, you'll be able to use less energy and get over that hump a lot easier than somebody that's smashing at 65 or 70 RPMs. I think a good balance is 85 to 90 RPMs. As a general guide, some people might find a little bit more or less.
Great, thanks. So I want to sneak one more question in for you. It seems we had a good amount of people asking specific questions about being a master cyclist. So in your calculations for doing tests, do you have any adjustments or anything different that you recommend for someone who is you know, 45 or older?
No, I think the test is still the same. You know, still, you know, for lactic threshold heart rate, 30-minute test, taking the last 20 minutes, average heart rate. It will be, if you're 45 or older, or even a novice, it's going to be a lower heart rate than a younger person, just because as you age, it will be, your heart rate's going to be less. So, but the protocol for the test is the same for heart rate, lactic threshold, or for a power test. Protocol is exactly the same.
Okay. Thanks, Curt. So that's all the time we have today for questions. Thanks, everybody, for attending. We've got some more webinars that we have scheduled in the next few months. So go ahead when you guys get a chance and just take a look at our webinar page. We've got some exciting ones out there. And like I said before, I will be sending an email out to everyone who attended with the uploaded URL on YouTube. So if you want to watch this again or listen to the questions and answers, you'll be able to do that. So thank you, everyone, for attending today. Have a great afternoon.